than being downstairs.
Yeah.
And who you think who was the first persons to, what would you say? I don't know what you call it.
To go from upstairs to downstairs.
Yeah, well, to come into the varsity, right.
So you've told me this in passing before, and the thought was always that it was Dick Gregory,
Right,
but you said there was somebody else,
right.
and I don't remember that name.
Joe Thomas, and I think her first name is Miranda Taylor.
Uh-huh.
And Joe Thomas was a fireman in Carbondale. His father was a minister. He was an opera singer and died overseas.
Wow.
Yeah. And his brother David also sings, and he lives in New York now. Been there for many years.
It's just the way that people can still leave here and do such amazing things, but always be tied to here.
Yeah, it's quite a few people. It's more than that. It's like what really this here needs to be. Carbondale's well and fine, but this is more than Carbondale. It's really the southern Illinois.
Yeah.
You know, you got many noted people coming out of the Alexander and Pulaski County, as well as Centralia, Mount Vernon area. So this is where the church association, speaking about the Mount Olive district of the Baptist, was, and I'm not exactly sure if Reverend Davis' church was Baptist or Methodist. I'm somewhat puzzled on that. Reverend Davis was from Cup, and he was also one of those who was very instrumental in my era and the campsite and church affiliations.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Now and this is because this is different than most of the podcasts I do, because I've got, pages of notes here. Usually I'm coming in, I'm kind of winging it.
Yeah.
Right? Just kind of start from there. But our conversation on Saturday, I mean, we talked for 2.5 hours, and we barely scratched the surface of your institutional knowledge. And I'm recording now, so we're good to go. In terms of just having the conversation and getting it out there. You were talking about growing up, going to Bethel.
Bethel was not my home church. My home church was with my parents was Rock Hill Baptist Church.
Okay, all right.
But my great-great-grandmother was at Olivet, Free Will Olivet.
Mm-hmm.
And Bethel basement was the host for the kindergarten. That's where I went to kindergarten there. Then I went to first grade at Thomas School.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Thomas married my aunt Juanita Thomas. And so Mr. Thomas was also a Rock Hill member. Mm-hmm. So he's the principal, a Rock Hill member, and married to my aunt. I can't do nothing.
You're on a short run, Pepper.
Yeah.
and to this day, still at 71 years old, can't do nothing, Pepper.
Can't do nothing.
Here's the deal. I'm going to do the intro real quick on there because I think that's a pretty good spot to intro our guest for episode 41 of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, and we tie it all back together to this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois. And there are few people that are much more Carbondale than Mr. Melvin Pepper Holder, who is also running for city council in 2021 and part of the broader city council interview series. And I appreciate you taking the time, Pepper, not just in this conversation here, but really taking the time to get me warmed up to where this conversation needs to go and how much conversation there really is.
Well, it's quite a bit to Carbondale history, and I'm glad that you're doing this. There's some others that I wish you could include in doing this here. Maybe you do more of it later, without the election. Yeah.
So this podcast, I mean, this is an ongoing thing. I mean, I started doing this in September. I'd been kind of trying to plan to get this, to just do this for about 2 years now. And so, yeah, no, this is, as soon as I'm done with Ginger's interview tomorrow, assuming I still can't get a hold of the other two folks that I'm trying to get that are council candidates, then I'm open, sky's the limit. We'll get whoever you've got good suggestions to have come in here, whether they need to come in here and talk, or whether I need to call them on the phone because they may not be physically here in Carbondale. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to explore, not just, the interesting stories of the individual people, but the story of this town as a whole. And it's really important to have generational knowledge of what's occurred in this town, and you get that by talking to folks from different generations.
True, and perhaps maybe in the process of you doing these various different interviews and so forth, I may interview you.
Yeah. So I did. I had Claire Kilman interview me for my city council one here, but I'm not opposed to doing future conversations where we flip the script and do a little bit more out of the one-on-one format. Because this is, for me, I've never been really good about knowing the full history of where I come from, right? And again, you're somebody that has the very clear understanding of a lot of components about the history of this town, not just what you've lived, but what has come before you, because you have done very well to document your life and the folks that have been your ancestors.
My aunt, when I first started with WDBX, my aunt called me into the room, and nobody in the house but she and I. And she almost was nervous in her own house with no one there but me to tell me about the Joe Brinson, Leonard Sizemore incident. I don't know if this is a good place to start with the conversation, but that was really something. And she said, Pepper, you need to know this. Mm-hmm. So in that passing on that knowledge, passing on that history, I've referenced that to say, this is where a lot of the community people and my people relations have, told me various different things, plus the firsthand things I've experienced.
Yeah, and feel comfortable. I mean, if there's a direction that you want to go right now, carry it. Right. This is a wide open conversation that is anything that you want to discuss. We discuss here, and however much time you want to discuss it, I'm here for that.
Well, this is a book. Let me see.
Yeah, no, that was looking good where you had it, the unity.
In unity, there's strength. Well, this book was put out by Martha Ferris and a book project community chair. She was the chair of the community. Now it got me rambling. I do better than that.
You're all right.
And then I covered the mic up. But anyway, pardon me, excuse me. Martha Ferris was related to Martin Luther King. She lived here in Carbondale for many years.
Wow.
And she and other women in the community got together to put this history of Carbondale black people into this book, In Strength There's Unity. So one of the persons who really did a document, she wrote her thesis, I guess you call it a thesis or whichever, was Johnetta Jones. Johnetta Jones, she taught college at Eastern. She lived over here on Marion Street, Carbondale High School, SIU, and then taught at Eastern. And Dr. John Y. Simon was quite proud of Johnetta Jones and her education and her will and her accomplishments and writing her papers and things and then teaching and all. So Johnetta, she talked about the history of the first free African American was in 1806. 1806. Mm-hmm. And so that was somewhat surprising to me. I have to reread these things that she had wrote. Mm-hmm. But Johnetta wrote well. Dr. M. Stalls, she put a paper together on SIU blacks and so forth, students and all.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been several persons who have wrote their thesis and whatever the other papers about Carbondale. And fortunately enough, a lot of it got into a pictorial historical book.
Mm-hmm.
And oh wow, just to go through this book here, I could turn just about to any page. And here I'm looking at Rock Hill Church, and Mrs. Roosevelt, President Roosevelt's wife. I mean,
That's wild.
yeah, I mean, I just flipped through a page, and so much is going on here in this town, and has happened in this town. And this book has so much history in it. They should get a lot of these books reprinted and put it back out here for people to see, and perhaps come in and talk about and expound upon Jonetta's work and Dr. M. Stahl's work.
Do you know if that book was printed by SIU Press by chance? Does it say on the back there anywhere? The reason why I say that, I had John Politz on the show several months ago, and he was talking about how the within the School of Mass Communication, they're taking these books from SIU Press and turning them into podcasts. They're essentially reading and narrating these books.
Yeah.
And I don't think that everything that they're going to do is strictly fiction. I think I would hope at least they're going to be getting into some actual historical books, and something like this is worth talking through.
Yeah, the thing that I think they had going here for the past month or so is about Bloody Williamson County.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Those persons who put that book and so forth together, several years ago, I spent a month on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that Bloody Williamson is far deeper than Carbondale, Heron. It goes all the way into East St. Louis. Now, I didn't hear them on SIU's podcast speaking about how Bloody Williamson County was a part of the problem of the race riot in 1917
Mm-hmm.
in East St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
But information that had been passed on to me was basically saying that the Williamson County Ministerial Alliance formed the Ku Klux Klan. This was about the coal mines and labor and so forth, and directed at Heron's Italian community.
Mm-hmm.
But being that they speaking about labor and developing the organization, took it further to another big labor area, which was East St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't exactly remember the exact cemetery, but one of the Sheltons, she was a Burger in the Shelton gang,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then the Ku Klux Klan.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the Sheltons is buried into the Catholic cemetery up in that area. So I had a lot of stuff on that years ago when I was at WDBX. And so the author of that book and others who participated, they came and did the show. And I love doing it. I mean, I love doing it.
Yeah.
But,
well, maybe we get you into podcasting next, Pepper. I mean, it's a more malleable form radio show,
yeah.
right? Without the break-ins of advertising or other things to go along with it.
Yeah, well, at this age, as that screen says, you see my hair.
Pepper's not just a nickname at this point. It's not.
At this stage of the game, I really need to write down just about anything that I'm talking about, because there was one of the things that I was doing. That was a tumultuous time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lynching down there in Cairo in 1909. and there was the Springfield race riot, 1909. The NAACP started in 1909.
Mm-hmm.
1917 was the East St. Louis that I just spoke about, race riot. And then 1921 was Tulsa. Now Tulsa community was supposed to be the Black Wall Street. That is, it had viable businesses. It was doing very well within the black community, and they're creating their own income and businesses, bus taxes, just really doing it in 1921.
Mm-hmm.
And so, without getting into the cause, well, the cause was racism, but the actual event that they wish to claim ignited that racism act. Depending on who you ask, where were the most people harmed, killed, murdered, and so forth by race rioters? And that was, some say East St. Louis. If not East St. Louis, it was definitely Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
So I spoke with the newspaper people, I spoke with state persons, and I had the accounting of the Red Cross of what they say of those who had been killed in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no real good finding for those who had been killed in East St. Louis because the river consumed so many.
Oh.
But in Tulsa, they didn't have that river. How they corralled people, and people were walking down the railroad track trying to get out of the area. And then there was 33, 35, I'm not exactly sure, square blocks of the black community where they had dropped gasoline firebombs onto the houses. And what I've seen, if you Google Map, there are some places still where the concrete steps are there, but no house, has not been rebuilt since 1921. And like I said, I really, speaking about that, I should have had it wrote down because I remember her very well. The one woman she had interviewed and created a file on 160 or 161 of the survivors of the Tulsa riot.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I don't know if she's passed or not, but anyway, I had her on my show. I had the newspaper person on my show, and the way I did it, I called the news. Well, I had already set everything up, but I called the newspaper, and the newspaper then called the woman that did so much work on it. Mm-hmm. So now I got myself on the phone here in Carbondale, and the newspaper person out there in Tulsa, and the woman living in Tulsa who had done so much work on all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And people were wondering, how in the world did I do it? I just applied a little thought.
Well, it's amazing how willing people are to talk with you when you ask them to do an interview.
Yeah.
More people are receptive to having a conversation, whether it's in a more condensed form, for television or radio, or a long form in a digital format. I mean, people are generally willing to share their work and have that conversation.
Yeah. I'm just flip to another page here without any, not just a plan. And
so bring that up over the microphone where you're at there, Pepper, and bring it to your right just a little bit.
Okay.
Are we looking at the car picture on the one on your right side, or are we looking at the family picture on your left?
The car picture.
Okay, so we're looking at the car picture.
Yeah.
All right.
That's Henry Clark.
Okay.
That's Papa. And I thought it was myself, but my Aunt Virginia said the other person wasn't me. And I said, well, I doubt that seriously, believe it was me. Well, the book says it was me.
Pepper, we looked at a number of photos that that happened to be you as a kid. You were one of the original selfie babies, man.
Yeah. 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 Oh boy. Let me see what I'm looking at here in this page. Alfonso Krim and family. George Krim, Florence Krim, Alfonso, Viola, Julius Krim, and Wilson Krim. These people here, the Krim family, they were, I mean,
Looks good.
not to say rich, but okay, all
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and productive and so forth. And Reverend Sumner was on this other part of that picture, the lower part, and his wife Ursi. Now Reverend Sumner has passed on, but Ursi, I talk to her occasionally right here.
Yep.
And so she messaged me, and her son Ron lives here in Carbondale, and still here. And so she has other kids that are living in D.C. and Nebraska and other places throughout the country. And it's a real community of people. In fact, Melvin Hewlett is doing a pretty good thing right now, and he's putting a means of communicating and together in different parts of the country. I think last year they went to Las Vegas and met out there, several different ones. So that's a good thing, and that maintaining that connection. And then there's a lot of people from Carbondale have went to Minnesota. But what should we really start at?
Well, I mean, a question that I have that's kind of burning, right? I don't even have to ask you the typical question of how'd you come to be in Carbondale, right? Because you are a stake, a lifelong, born of Carbondale person like myself.
Yeah.
Here, so like that's we're every bit of the conversation we have is
Well,
is tied to
if I had it on my phone, I would play the Change is Going to Come. I was born by the river, and that was in St. Louis, Missouri, in Homer G. Phillips Hospital. And soon after my birth, I was here in Carbondale. Well, I was really going to be here in Carbondale anyway, but just so happened I was born in St. Louis. And so St. Louis has a lot of I have a lot of strong connections to St. Louis. My uncle Orville Isbell, he played the saxophone and so forth, and he was called Fats. He was kind of stocky. I guess that's where I got mine from. And so he one of his biggest regrets that he did not go to California with the Fifth Dimensions. He played the background for them. So, but he ended up and retired from the post office. But one of my grandmothers, and I say one of my grandmothers because I had a couple of them. There's a thing in the United States called divorce. You move on. So anyway, one of my grandmothers lived in St. Louis, and her name was Thelma Isbell, then Holder, then Banks. So she married a man by the name of Reuben Banks, and Reuben Banks' mother was Aunt D. My grandmother Thelma and Reuben, they had a restaurant and bar in St. Louis, and she was also a nurse at Homer G. Phillips for some reason why I'm born up there. And even my birth certificate had Banks on it because she took me to the hospital, and somebody didn't have the wherewithal to, so I had to get that redone, all that mess. And but right here in Carbondale is home, is where I was raised, where I've experienced the most in the community, the most love. Now I had my great grandmother, Alice Isbell, till I was 19, and that was really something. But that's when I got my first blister in my hand with a spade in the backyard, busting up clogs for the garden. Every Saturday, when I would come of age a little bit to be able to walk down on Washington Street to Dillinger's store, Mr. Dillinger already knew what I come there for, and he'd have 2 chickens tied on a string rope. So he'd give me the 2 chickens, and me and them 2 chickens coming on back to my grandmother's. And we'd take those chickens, and my grandmother had the water going, and she was a petite woman, real small, and she would wring that chicken's neck. It'd flop around there and blood be a-gushing. Next thing you know, that chicken's in that hot water getting the feathers plucked off of it. But that was something. So,
was Long Branch still kind of a gambler's outfit back in the day when you would have been younger, around that time when you had been walking up to Dillinger's? And I asked that question because I didn't hear this story a lot, but every now and then my grandma would talk about dragging her dad out of Long Branch because he was up there drinking and gambling and doing whatever.
Well, when I was dragging them chickens back, no, I don't think no black persons could go into the Long Branch.
Okay.
There was when I got to be older, as not even quite a teenager, just entering my teen years, there was a window and a little shelf out of the window to where I could notice where a lot of the black people, colored at that time, was go to the window and get their liquor. But as far as going in the place, no.
There was never, okay.
And I wasn't even allowed to come down the street. There were black bars from Jackson to Oak.
Okay.
But when I got bringing the chickens back to Jackson Street, I would have to turn and go down Jackson Street, then go back Marion Street, because I wasn't supposed to go down there in front of the tavern.
And that was back in the day when kids actually listened every now and then.
Yeah.
So you for the most part avoided the taverns pretty well as a kid.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to go in front of those taverns, that's for sure. So, it's interesting times. But, speaking about the coming down that Jackson Street in Marion, where the Sufis had their daycare, you notice that tall fence?
Is it the one around the outside play area?
Right. Well, that wasn't to keep those Sufi kids in. Those were to keep black colored kids in when they overflow of the jail.
In that spot now.
Right.
Really.
The jail was right there where Carbondale Bank is.
Okay. Yeah. I remember somebody actually just posted a couple days ago, and I think like the Carbondale pre-1990s photo group, a picture of what was there before the bank.
So you could go down the alley and holler, hey, who in there? And they'd holler back. So that was just something to play to do as bringing the chickens back. And then one of the big mysteries that took place at the police station, they say that there was some marijuana that the rats ate up. The police had evidence, and the rats supposed to ate up the evidence. Yeah. So that was the city hall part of it. That's something that needs to be wrote on.
Mm-hmm.
How many times city hall has moved? Where was it the first time, the second, third, and fourth?
Uh-huh.
I say that at least the first or the second time was Hairbrains.
Right there right next to Trace Hombres there.
Right.
Okay.
It probably was also Tres Hombres.
Okay.
And then the next time was down here on College Street. Well, no. It would have been on Main Street where the jail
Mm-hmm.
and the fire station was on the corner of Main and Marion.
Okay.
And then it moved from there down to College Street. And
Okay.
then it's moved over here.
That's quite a few jumps.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Dr. John Y. Simon said that, John A. Logan, some would say that John A. Logan's nickname is Blackjack, and others called him Dirty Work for being so willing to go and catch or find colored people to send back to slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Simon told me, he said, the legislator, whoever was running the legislature at the time, say, who would go and catch these people? And so no one responded and said, one more time, who would go and catch these people? Who would go and do such dirty work? Johnny Logan raised his hand. So Blackjack does the dirty work.
So, all right. So I may have misunderstood when we were talking the other day then. Johnny Logan wasn't going out to help slaves that were looking for freedom, but he was actually going out and catching people and returning them to slavery.
The division here in Southern Illinois, which I see it clearly still here today, was basically said that a battalion or whatever of men left Southern Illinois and went over to the Kentucky side waiting for Logan to come and lead them.
Mm-hmm.
But he elected to go with the North. So that's John A. Logan and Abraham Lincoln and the Logan family and Abraham Lincoln had a association that was, more than just I know you as a legislator or general, whomever.
Mm-hmm.
They were friends.
Mm-hmm.
So birds of a feather to me flock together.
Now you were talking. I'm looking at my notes here, because you were talking about Dr. John Y. Simon. You've mentioned him a couple times here, and talking about we had talked about the National Grant Association. That's just what I've got written down in my notes. I remember you talking about that being a pretty big deal coming out of Carbondale.
Yeah, Dr. Simon was a big deal, period. And you would see him often on C-SPAN.
Mm-hmm.
And, he lectured around the country and did radio shows and all. And I was so glad when I called him about a show that I was proposing, I was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, so you called me from the hospital and having a hip replacement? Yes, sir. And he said, well, if you called me from the hospital from a hip replacement, I'll do your show. So he did my show several times. And he's the one in just general conversation, sitting outside one of the SIU library or so forth, as he was smoking, and we would just be talking or what was on the show or not. What I couldn't get him to do, though, I was really wanting him to debate Lerone Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
Lerone Bennett was the editor for Ebony magazine. So Lerone Bennett, he wrote a book about Lincoln and Douglas only meeting Lincoln two times.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was perceived that Lincoln had met Douglas several times, but the book only alleges that he met 2 times. I couldn't get them to go ahead and to get it going, but I had them both on the radio. And Ray Lindsay was there too. And
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a good show. It was a good show. And so we talked about the number of people who had colored troops, and so forth, on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And the grant had set up here in Cairo as a position to deal with the South aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exactly sure why Dr. John Y. Simon came to be so enthralled with President Grant, or General Grant, but that's where so much of his work was,
mm-hmm.
within creating volumes and volumes of Grant's papers. And so with that, he became the primary person to represent Grant and the Grant Association.
Mm-hmm.
So then when the story goes, as he was on the elevator and while he was remodeling the library, Morris, he was joking with a female owner and said, "We've been stuck over here long enough for somebody to get pregnant." And then things just got out of hand, how she just ran off with this and to the dean, and the dean challenging Dr. Simon, and things just really got out of hand, and he died in the hospital a few days after that. But he had a wing. I mean, he had a wing in Morris Library.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, Dr. Simon's efforts, work was big.
When you said, I mean, that it had at least a national footprint, if not bigger than that, and the folks that were engaged in the work that he was doing.
Right. I mean, like I said, he was consulted by historians,
Mm-hmm.
and when all this took place, SIU lost the Grant Association. People from around the country came and sued SIU to take it away from here,
mm-hmm.
and took it to Starkville, Mississippi. Yeah. So that was that.
On another, and again, I'm just kind of picking up from stuff that we talked about the other day and trying to tie into where we're at here. You talked about that lynching in 1909, and then in turn about in, what was it, 1967, when, was it the Cairo City Council that acknowledged that somehow? Or I can't remember exactly how that story came together.
Let me see here. That I don't know. I have to pull that out and see what we were talking about. I think his name is James something, but the John Marshall Law School Fair and Affordable Housing Civil Rights legislation in a racial powder keg, the Cairo Experience. And in that Cairo Experience, if I can pull this out of here.
Now everybody's going to know how organized you are, Pepper. They're going to know that you walk around with files full of knowledge that you can reference at a finger's swipe.
Yeah. Well, without reading the whole page and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
Judge Wise's final order in December 1973 refers to the testimony of Preston Ewan Jr. Interrupting myself, Preston Ewan is a historian of Cairo and others of no equal. He has so much core knowledge, and I just wish that he could probably, he's older than I, and I wish that what he has that he could get paid for and give to his family, whomever he wanted to give it to, and give the paperwork to SIU and keep it in the area. But he has so much. He has a mountain of work that I wish he could give to the community. And let's see, back to what I was trying to say. Judge Wise's final order in December 1973 refers to testimony by Preston Union that parade was conducted in Cairo not only to demonstrate racial injustice, but also to serve as a safety valve or emotional release for members of the black community were racially radical intent. Created several tensions. The court expressed recognition that a notice requirement of more than 6 hours could upset the court, upset the whatever.
Okay. Yep.
Anyway, getting on down to that though, it is a week later, the Illinois governor declared the office of the Alexander County Sheriff vacated.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. That's what it was because the sheriff's this gentleman had been lynched in the custody of the sheriff's department, right?
Right.
Okay.
But okay, that's the violence of lawlessness that occurred was in November 11, 1909. Mm-hmm. William James, a black man, was lynched for allegedly murdering a young white woman. The sheriff of Alexander County had tried to protect James, so he said, by taking him to a nearby town, but a mob intercepted them, took James from the sheriff's custody, and brought James back to Cairo, where I need a ruler.
Just to follow along.
Yeah.
But I think, and that's just to understand, right, that these stories aren't that long ago. People like to think that these things have just occurred, like it was 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago. But this stuff's in recent life, not just history, but life lived.
Well, say like America, 400 years.
Yeah.
I've been here almost 1/4 of it.
That's a very real statement.
Yeah, and so where was I at there? The lynching of a person in custody, prima facie evidence of a sheriff's failure to perform his duties. The governor's actions were affirmed by the Illinois Supreme Court in People versus Nels court case 249, Illinois, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. In 1967, the National Guard was called to Cairo as a result of disorder following the hanging of James Hunt, which is over here on C note 2 something. Anyway, there's more hanging and more injustice in Cairo and Southern Illinois than most people would imagine. And it's been going on for a very, very long time. And if anyone wanted to know the history of Southern Illinois, primarily that of Cairo, I urge you to go find Preston Ewing, and he's in the City Hall building down there. I don't know if he has a job there, but he has a post there. So,
That is his place. Well, and
yeah.
that gives another good transition, right, to talking about injustice Southern Illinois wide and tying that back to Carbondale specifically, right, is the paper on the Coppers plant.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, when did you first get access to that paper, or where were you first able to unearth that?
Uh, oh boy, now that is a good question.
And if you don't
I'm
have
try-
the spot on answer, I mean we're
Yeah, I
we're
hear
close
you.
enough. Just knowing the context of
I hear you. No problem with that. The thing is, those times and dates of when I got wise of this and found this paper is, one thing. But the information I found after I got the paper is really something else.
yeah, absolutely.
And so the paper that I got, the way I found it, was from the business above Hairbrains.
Mm-hmm.
They go and do diggings around to see if there are graveyards or anything to be disturbed and other stuff like that for companies that are looking to do some whatever. So the Copper's plant history started in 1902. Everything starts prior to, but it started operation in 1902.
Mm-hmm.
And an announcement was made in Carbondale Free Press. Are you familiar with the Free Press?
I am not.
Well, before there was the Southern, it was the Carbondale Free Press.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked the way the Free Press was worked even way back then. So you go out to your library, you can see if they still have it, or I think maybe the Southern has bought it out. And to see it on microfiche, Rock Hill, other churches, it seemed to be more open, more malleable, I believe is the term,
Mm-hmm.
to the community, the black community, than today. Today, neither there's the Carbondale Times or the Southern especially do any outreach in covering the community, the Northeast, the black community. There are those who wish to say that it's Carbondale. Well, there are a lot of black people in Carbondale, and they're not being covered in the white-owned papers.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this election, this campaign is something I've been talking about for many years. Norvell Haynes was the first one that brought it to my attention, is this needs to be a ward established in Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
That Carbondale, their voting process is racist as any racist, almost like poll tax.
Mm-hmm.
The black community has hardly any voice and has any power with their voice. So if it was a ward, then the ward would give them the area with population to sit at the table with authority rather than just sitting there getting along to go along.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of it has been. There's been a few times that there have been some people who were respected to, they garnered respect and was given that by others at the city council table. But it has not been the council has not been a true advocate for black people in Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's primarily coming from the way the structure of the voting is in Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
Murfreesboro has a ward system. Chicago has a ward system. But Carbondale, wishing to control its population and everything so much, will not grant a ward system here.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I was talking to Jeff a few podcasts ago, one of the things that he had said just in talking through, the history of Carbondale. He said there have been referendums. Now, obviously, a referendum by itself would be stacked against the idea of a award system in service of the black community in Carbondale.
Right.
Right. but specifically that twice, I think he said in the 70s and possibly in the 90s, that there had been votes for a change to a award system that had failed, and then that there was a change in the council structure in 2003 to add 2 more seats to the council, but they were still at-large seats. They weren't
Right.
seats that were allowing for representation from a specific geographical area of the town.
It was Stephen Haynes and Corrine McDaniel. And if you looked at the votes that Corrine McDaniel got, they mirrored Maggie Flanagan's votes. So you know how to pull those up, precincts?
Yeah.
I mean, identical. Except for she got 175 more votes in the black community than that Maggie Flanagan got. So at that time, she was the top vote getter with the help of Maggie.
And what, Maggie lost that election by 7 votes or something, like a very...
No, I don't think Maggie lost that election. She might have lost the next one.
Oh, okay, all right.
All
right.
Yeah. I don't think she lost that one. But it was Maggie Flanagan, that really catapulted Corrine McDaniel. And then, as they were trying to give somebody recognition from the black community, but the black community didn't vote for whomever they wanted. We got what the city of Carbondale gave us to, So that's a problem. It's in their control. I mean, they stacked the deck. So I don't know if they're ever going to get out of that. That's the only reason I'm doing this again.
How many times have you ran?
I think
before,
this is the second time I ran
time?
for council.
Okay.
But my thing is, I could go crappie fishing. Yeah, and what I regret that this community has not created a body of interested, concerned citizens, truly concerned with core knowledge, and not say you stay here for the rest of your life, but you need to be here for a while. You need to have an intentions of being here for a while and not use the council or whatever, as a lot of people feel, is used at the university as a stepping stone to go somewhere else. So we don't have any, we have not created that population that's going to be here to speak and be an advocate for here. And that's a real big problem. And hopefully someday that somebody will step up and some men will come through and go forth with stabilizing the community to be a better place.
Well, and it's right, for so long we've relied on a population of people that come and go, right? We've never looked at it and said, how do we just stabilize Carbondale as a place where you stay, where you come and stay, not come and go?
Well, true. They failed to, if this was supposed to be the cultural center of Carbondale, they've done very little to create that culture in Southern Illinois. So we know we couldn't just say Carbondale is the cultural place only, but you got Cairo, you got Centralia, you got all of Southern Illinois as well as Shawneetown. Have you spent any time in Shawneetown?
I've not.
You got to get over there. There's Shawneetown and there's Old Shawneetown. And Old Shawneetown was the part, the Southern Illinois, that refused to loan Chicago any money when Chicago had its fire. And there's some old money over there, but they dwindling away, as Southern Illinois is dwindling away, for which it had an opportunity to really open this place up. You got Wren Lake. You could have had another state park south of here, south of Anna in that area.
Really?
You got 2 major railroads.
Mm-hmm.
You got 2 major interstates. You got 2 major rivers.
Mm-hmm.
That's water. What else do you need?
We've even got the airports now.
Well, Cape Dorado had one down there a long time ago. But coming from Cape over, where we got this little place up here going down in this area here, my thing is, if they had a focus on, and I spoke with Senator Simon several times about why don't we have something here? He said, oh, you get on the phone, call New York, and they ain't got here yet. But railroad, highway, and water, a university, junior colleges, a major university. It's not Harvard, but it's still a major university.
Yeah.
And then with the junior college could train in the workforce you need. So where's the forethought for this place to go forth?
Mm-hmm.
It bewilders me that they don't think or go any further. And then you're like, I mentioned to you the other day over here on Baptist Camp Road over here by Cup, that their Reverend Turley and others had put together 60 acres and had a campsite, a chapel, a house. The farmhouse was on there to use as the kitchen, a place where we go eat, and all that. We slept more or less in the chapel that was established over there, Keithley Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And how could they do so much with so little at that time, and then we produce so much over here, doctor this and doctor that and doctor them, the doctor don't even live in the community.
No.
And so then doctor this and that wishes to represent the community and has any trouble wherever they may be, and then they call on the community to come to doctor's rescue. But doctors, whoever, she ain't representing us. She don't work for us. And that's a shame that we don't have. It was a mistake by the black community thinking that you go and get your education, you go come back to the community and serve the community, be for the people. But so many have gotten their education and left the people, where it was a community with stores and houses and professors and principals and teachers living in it. Then these people who come from other places come in and call themselves rising up, but really rising up on the backs of those who have been here and moved on away.
Well, that's another good transition here. Not to cut you off, Pepper, but one of the things that I definitely want to talk about too, right, is you come, like, your father, right, was a businessman,
right,
and he built something, and I mean we had talked about everything from experiencing the violent racism of having his name on the side of a truck and going in to pay for a truck ticket, all the way to the actual act of arson that destroyed so much of what he had built.
Right. Destroyed. There was a lawyer here by the name of Bradley. In fact, the way people spoke of him, my father's time, they called him Lawyer Bradley. And so Lawyer Bradley told my dad, James Holder, how to get out of the problems of the lawsuits that was coming with the Holder warehouse fire. He had several trucks, 3 warehouses, and this one here on Main Street is over there by, I don't know, is that 500? Go ahead.
You said it was by Hunan, right? Where it is there? They got the...
No, not that far down.
No, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's not far from, on the same side of the street as where the cemetery is.
Okay.
About a block west of there. East of there.
Okay. So where the auto parts store is?
Yeah, go
Kinda.
a little bit further past that.
Okay.
There was an ice house and then Daddy's warehouse. And so I don't know if you can see this. If I
Yeah,
got
yeah. If you want to hold that, bring that a little bit closer to the camera, if you would, and just bring it to your right a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's got a pretty good shot of that.
Yeah.
Because you can see definitive the people standing in the street, the signage in front of that. What looks like it says Watson, or does that say?
I think it says hold the warehouse fire
Okay.
in 1957.
And then all the smoke billowing up there. You said 57.
Yeah.
So you would have been relatively young.
Yeah, I was a boy.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so anyway, back to Lawyer Bradley, he was basically saying that, how Daddy could get out of the paying all of that because like when you got to put somebody's things in storage, you're supposed to have like 3 copies of the inventory.
Mm-hmm.
You get a copy, the office gets a copy, and the warehouse has a copy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, you see how society is now, but it didn't just get that way. But Daddy didn't take that. He bit the bullet and went ahead and paid whatever came off if people claimed that there was their loss.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways to beat the competition was like it wouldn't unpack your dresser.
Mm-hmm.
So we got your dresser's on the inventory, it's covered, but the contents of the dresser is not covered.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got to pay. And so he paid dearly.
And I'm sure there was always somebody trying to get over on him.
Yeah, he was really upset when one woman said that her tablecloth was $400.
And that would have been $400 in
57.
57 money, which is a lot more today.
Yeah.
What did he do after the fire? And
he continued. I mean, he a lot of people didn't realize it, but he had a couple of trucks that wasn't around here, was working out of the area.
Mm-hmm,
And so focus of the business somewhat left the immediate area.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because Dr. Morris left here. Dr. Morris was very, very instrumental in helping and developing my dad's business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was trying to say to you the other day that where are the Dr. Morrises of the white community now in Carbondale? They're not around, and there may be a few, but they're not. The community is not speaking up. That community of white people
Mm-hmm.
are not lending their knowledge, their assistance to help develop something that extends more than the individual.
Mm-hmm.
So there were many men who worked for Daddy. And I know when some other businesses, the SIU, the tape plant, or whomever, other companies would call and ask about a man who went to work for the university. Mm-hmm. And said, well, you work for Jimmy Holder. We know you work.
Is that where you get it too? I mean, do you feel like you got the work ethic from your dad?
Well, you see the pain.
That's right. Making up these stairs alone.
Yeah.
Crunch knee here and a displaced hip there.
Yeah.
So were you always in construction then?
Well,
I know you talked about the John A. bid, but was construction always your thing, or have you done a mix of stuff over time?
I've done a mix of things, but primarily, his business was holder, moving, and storage.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, doing that, he was hauling coal,
mm-hmm.
and he had vegetables that were coming in. He would take them to different places around southern Illinois. Mm-hmm. And then if my cousin and I were little boys, then so there'd be so many watermelons or whatever there in the backyard, and tell us to sell them instead of eating them. And so like I used to tell people, on Saturday we'd always have a board meeting, mm-hmm. but the board meeting was the men was tearing down houses as the university was growing.
Uh-huh.
And so Dad had a group of men tearing down houses or doing one thing or another, the trucks things going and all that type of stuff. And then they bring the boards and put them in the backyard or put them down to another house down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So my cousin, we got a hammer and crowbars. We pulled the nail. That was board meeting. and then take the lumber and, we don't clean up and so forth. Uh-huh. And then Daddy would get the guys to go and build another house or something.
That's proper resourceful.
Yeah, he was that. And never made it to the 8th grade. That was Dr. Morris, who allowed a person who would work hard, work hard, and was a community person. And 57 was a heck of a year. You think this was bad. They had a tornado over here in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm. Was that the year of the big Murfreesboro tornado?
Yeah, that was one of the big Murfreesboro tornadoes. Murfreesboro had more than one.
Okay.
But Daddy went over there, and with his stepmother, he built her house. He brought people from Murfreesboro to help them over here. In fact, you're going to interview one of them.
Who was? Sorry.
Miss Jameson, Ginger.
Oh, okay, all right.
And that's the kind of man my daddy was, and so forth. And Reverend Turley, Daddy called Mr. Thomas Professor Thomas. Thomas School, married to my aunt, and there were men at that time that was giving to the community and with the backbone of the community with the support of good women.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some other women and some other men. All of them, everybody's not perfect.
Yeah.
And some worse than others. But there were some women that were really speaking up. One of those women was with my aunt Juanita Thomas was with that group was Irma Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Robert Stalls was the guiding post with that. And that's where the Model Cities thing come in with his association with other professors out here on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, they put a coalition together that changed the direction of Carbondale, which I say was the last progressive period of Carbondale. Mm-hmm. With the Model Cities program, some houses that got built, Dr. Morris, it was almost like unreal, amazing compared to what we have here today.
Mm-hmm.
And
why did the resources from that program stop? Do you have a clear recollection?
No, I don't have a real clear recollection. The city has always maintained some form of control over it. And no one really that knows the city and how it was at that time felt as if the city of Carbondale did their due diligence in maintaining and extending and trying to create and develop a better community. Mm-hmm. They just did a haphazard. I wish Jeff's daughter was here right now. They just did the minimum of what they possibly could do, mm-hmm. even with the resources that was given to them from the federal, however they garnered these different things, mm-hmm. and the talent. That's the shame of it all. You have the talent of this university with and others in the community, mm-hmm. then why aren't they utilizing this to create not say a utopia, but a better place?
Yeah.
And so the reason I say they don't choose to do that is because they want to keep that division so a few who are in power can maintain their power, because if others rose to power, then there minimizes those in power.
Well, and the question then becomes, after everybody has exhausted their time and efforts in power, and you have less and less each day for you to have power over, what is the point of even having that power to begin with?
Tribalism. You have families that, are still garnering the money from those men who were there then, or trying to maintain, they just don't see the development of the growth.
Well, and it's got to be right. And again, what it has not been for the entire existence of this town, it has to be everybody eats, right? Everybody gets, a chicken in every pot type of deal, right? That's the only way that this town exists for a foreseeable amount of time in the future.
But that's not capitalism. Capitalism only succeeds with oppression. So if you're into a tribal thing, you're going to suppress anybody else. Say it's ridiculous to say that. It is very ridiculous to say that we're not going to pay. I don't want to pay minimum wage. That's too high, because if I pay minimum wage, I'm gonna lose. Now, even the thought of paying a higher wage, they raise the price of bread, and then they got to pay what do you call that? Rent assistance, food stamps, Medicare, penitentiary, rather than paying a living wage.
Yeah. I mean, the perfect Walmart example, right? Walmart doesn't pay living wage to the abundance of its workers, and those workers are folks that have to utilize government assistance just to pay rent, just to eat the food that they have to put on the shelves themselves.
And then the powers to be gives away the tax base to Walmart and sucks it off of the population.
I mean, that's a great example of that Walmart that's built right between Murfreesboro and Carbondale.
Yeah.
Right? That it's just outside of any tax base for it to be meaningful. Right? It's not in Murfreesboro's. It's not in ours. It is simply there in this no man's land of tax value. There's no one municipality that the sales tax that's garnered there goes to. There's a number of issues with having a major, right, transactive center like that on the outskirts of town.
But some of these things have taken place in the city limits. In their negotiation to put this Walmart in Carbondale, and so forth. And so, you got a whole host of a TIF district. You understand that, right?
Yes. Is there what particularly are you wanting to
Well,
reference on the TIF district?
One of the most asinine things I've seen that Carbondale has done was allowing O'Reilly's, the burger places, even to the bank, and the mechanic places to be bordering the cemetery, that historical cemetery.
Yes.
So with that historical cemetery being the ground, there could have been other substantial buildings of height, which you could have put the bank on a floor. You could have put something else on another floor, and whatever else to take the building up, centralizing the community sewer system and traffic things coming into that area with the site of a historical place and not give away the TIF to hamburgers, TIF to mechanic store. That's almost like driving up to the OK Corral and just, hey, tie the horse up, go in and get you some can of oil and let's go.
I mean, it is truly astonishing to have such a place of prominence and the words are escaping me.
Not utilizing to the advantages of where it could be beneficial to the community, and you having the site to look over.
Yeah.
And then, so, you're speaking about a blighted area from College Street going north. You pretty much got a blighted area that could have been developed into housing or other things. And how could you go there and assist in that? Well, now I haven't remembered how this actually worked, but I understand that FHA does not have that much of a percentage of financing in the city limits of Carbondale. That's something that needs to be looked into.
Are we talking about the like the rural
Yes.
housing loans?
Right. Well, we're in the rural South right here now.
Yeah, I mean we qualify, and I know this is something that came up a handful of years back. I mean, just in the past 3 years or so, that we about lost our federal rural. It's rural house. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's all about being in a rural space and having access to mortgage funds at like 5% down and a couple other particular stipulations. But I mean, we still are well within qualifying range of that, being under, I think it's like 35 or 30,000 people. I wouldn't quote me on that, but I know we're well under that threshold for qualifying in that. And I think we still do have it, but it's just how many people actually think about it, know about it, apply it, use it, get access to it.
But I don't think that you have total access to it for the whole community.
Yeah.
It's only a percentage of it that can be utilized within city limits of Carbondale.
Okay.
So the city wishes to take over so much of the property. That's another subject. But anyway, there are lots that could be given away, which in the South, I found when I was living down there and working down there, that if you owned a lot, that you could get FHA to build a house. Now, one of the key things about FHA, if you happen to lose your job, you pay according to your income, so you don't become homeless.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an Einstein, and like I tell many of them, I ain't got no degree.
No. But you're smart enough to see that maybe we need to keep people in their houses.
Yeah.
And the only way that anybody would ever get back on their feet is by having a place from where they live, so they can actually go out and work the next day and not just be on the street.
Right. And then look at the houses they did build here in the last 10 years and over here on the northeast side. That's really silly. That's you can buy the house in 15 years. If they had come up with using their head and placed the housing for the community in a different program, they could have went in owning and creating, developing that wealth. Now, I know that. Why wouldn't they allow that to be? Because they wish to not allow you to have that wealth. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And so they do everything they can to keep that community down. Disperse that community in all ways they possibly can. And that's what makes this so-called Carbondale, Illinois, and this voting and how black people have been treated here in this community for many, many, many years, I'd say is one of the most racist communities, definitely in Illinois. And I used to say on the when I had my radio show, this is Pepper Holder, WDBX 91.1 Community Radio for Southern Illinois. Too far north to be south, too far south to be north, except that I find here we are worse than Mississippi, and I've been there. I'm serious. The areas of Mississippi is far better than here. And so if you want to see third world, you don't have to go to Mississippi. You go right, stay around here, go south of here, just to go around Carbondale. You find third world if you look. All right. There was a woman that told me there was no homeless here. I said, yes, there are. There's plenty of homeless here. This was some time ago before they really expanded. The warming used to be at the city hall, and then they took it out of there and moved it down here on College. Well, when I asked in a conversation with, what's his name? He was interim mayor at the time.
Don Monty.
Don Monty, about, a homeless place. He said, well, we did that. People be coming from everywhere. I mean, they're here anyway. They come here anyway. And so I went to the meeting that they have at the city hall. I can't think of those people's names, but anyway.
Okay. We got a couple different things. There's was it the study circles or was it the Human Relations Commission?
Human Relations.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I spoke with them, and I can't think of the guy's name that was there, who was one was dealing with the warming center. And so then they moved it on down here. Well, a lot of the complaints now that the people are down there and been there too long for it's a homeless place or something like that. It's like they're virtually taking a residence down there instead of progressing and moving along. Well, one of the things that's gotten in the way is the virus. But even before the virus, they was there for some time. But so what is the program to move them and elevate this population to not to be in that situation? Now, that's not the people who are down there's problem. That's City Hall's problem. City Hall should have somebody that has the wisdom to be able to show what's the next step and how can I help you help yourself.
And that's another thing you had talked about the other day was, some of this idea of essentially developing this support system where people got to live with each other to keep it together.
Right. And what I'm talking about with that moving these people along is not just something that I come up with. I mean, but with my dad's business, driving those trucks and doing whatever, and doing the things that I did, I did construction, but I learned the construction from my dad. If they were tearing down houses, my cousin and I having board meeting, building a house over here. So then I took the next step on out and did the larger construction type thing. But it was my dad that everything I learned from him. And the travels that we made together and seeing how Daddy used to say, if you see a man put his foot on the shovel, look out. If you see a man digging the ditch, look how he put his foot on the shovel. So I felt, boy, sometimes riding down the highway, I could almost put in a highway. I believe I can still now. And so I've seen a lot of things, a lot of different places, and some things, I do have a little bit of, when I'm running a job, I kind of see things to the next step or 3 or 4 steps ahead to where everything comes out, and as my prices go in there, the men are doing it this way and all that. But I've seen it already in my head. I know what's going on here and there. And you can see, at least I have seen, and I can see where we ought to be going with these very different things, like the homeless thing. The homeless thing that could be easily taken care of by to one step of moving out of the warming center as to pairing people together in a housing area. And so the revenue that these people get then can be for their expenses of their housing area out of the warming center to the next level of how can I help you by the resources that we already have in place. For instance, like doors evaluates and then tries to help you come out of the situation you're in to be able to go ahead and go forth again. Things are there. If the community had the free will and the liquidity to help someone to those next levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't got no degree.
You can just see.
Yeah.
What do you have in your hands right now, Pepper? What's the next?
Wow. Oh wow.
And take your time if there's stuff that you want to
Oh,
unbind and pull out to
don't-
look at.
The only thing about this here, I don't mind doing this here. Just what's going on here. It makes it seem like I'm rambling.
You're not well, but here's the thing about the podcast, Pepper.
Yeah.
It's not rambling, and I'll tell you, a lot of this stuff all ties together real nicely.
Yeah.
Right. We kind of start and we'll like make a mention of something early on, and then a little bit later we'll come back and we'll revisit again. And so no, this is very exploratory. This is exactly what we're looking for. So no, you're great, man.
Anyway, this is a picture of me, and one of the men that is that
That looks real good. No, that's super visible.
okay. One of the men that used to work for my dad, his name was Walter Steele.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would take me fishing, and he would take me to the carnival out here in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Where the old CIPS office is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that because that's Jan Payne's office now, right? Is that what
Okay.
I'm thinking of?
Well, there
Or
was,
is there an even older one?
there was the carnival used to come there.
Uh-huh.
And my cousin, 2 years, he's a year and a half older than me. And so when Walter Steele wasn't carrying me fishing or to the carnival or to where he took me and his daughter to, her name is Cookie, and getting our picture taken, my cousin, my dad would give my cousin the money to take me to the carnival, and then we go over there, and then I could shoot. I could shoot better than I can today.
Mm-hmm.
But I could shoot them silver dollars. I found out would tip them silver dollars off.
Mm-hmm.
We coming home. And Daddy taught me how to shoot. So that's that particular picture there. Paul Eccles is retired Carbondale police.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so let me see exactly. I got to find this before I put my finger on it if I can show you. Because he don't believe me. Oh, boy. I should have had it pointed out before.
You're okay.
Okay.
Take your time.
Well, this is a bird's eye view of where the radio station is and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's David's store down here. This is where we at. Right. So here we go.
All right.
This is where the Sufi's place is here,
Uh-huh.
They look, well, there's a round building thing there.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we can see that pretty well.
So
Okay.
over here is Oak Street.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what the same side of the street where the Sufi, it used to be the thrift shop, used to be lots of different things in that building, even Coca-Cola and a drugstore as well. So all the way down here to Oak Street, that's there, is where the radio station is, and then just going on here, there was a little indention there to where Paul Eccles, the police that he's been on my show a time or two, and I was telling him that was when I was young. That was Miss Daisy's restaurant, a little bitty small kitchen. I swear the place couldn't have been no bigger than this stage area right here.
Uh-huh.
And so then the Palms Lounge was right on the other side. So anyway, Paul Eccles and I, we talked about that. Paul Eccles, he had been on my show a couple of times. Now that's a story there. A lot of people, remember I was telling you about my aunt telling me about Leonard Sizemore and Joe Brinson?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, when my aunt told me, and then I brought it on the air, then that broke the story to to this these times of that incident where Joe Brinson killed Leonard Sizemore, I believe it was 208 or 218 Oak Street in 1933. And so Joe Brinson, being a black man, it said death was August the 20th, 1933. Joe Brinson, a black man, he was killed by the justifiable homicide by resisting sheriff and posse.
Oh.
The posse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the Carbondale Free Press, in the Carbondale Free Press, the sheriff said when he got word, he convened the posse. In 10 minutes, he was in Carbondale. And cars must have been running awfully good from Murfreesboro to Carbondale. So then he gets over here on Washington Street, where the Spire store is. You know about Spire store?
Which?
Just before you would get to Italian Village.
Okay. All right.
From Walnut Street to Italian Village, that area right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Spire store. So Joe Brinson's mother was down the hill in her house at what do you call it? Right across from Save-A-Lot.
Is it across the street where the currently empty building is, or is it where the Marion
High rise.
high rise? Okay, all right,
Yeah.
like 305 or something.
Yeah, a little bit north of there, just a little bit north of there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, point being, the sheriff goes there to Joe Brinson's mother's house. She's in the bed, and Joe Brinson's brother was the same age as my aunt, 15 or 16. And the sheriff said that Joe Brinson's mother was reaching for a gun under the pillow. So anyway, he was twisting her arm, and Tony Brinson, her youngest son, was saying, "Get off my mama." He was hollering and all that. The mother's hollering and all that. So then Joe Brinson, he starts coming down from the Spire store, that's the Washington Street, on down towards the Marion thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they had a sizable truck patch at the time. So then, as they shooting at him, he shoots one of the deputies by the coal shed. And then as he shot, that shootout was going on. They shot him. He fell down in the cornfield part of the truck patch area.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sheriff comes out and then says he shot the nigga in the head to make sure he was dead. So he rounded up another one of his brothers and put him in jail. They beat him and all that, and run him out of town and so forth, But there were 6 people on Oak Street when Joe Brinson killed Leonard Sizemore.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Sizemore was a white police officer. And he had been there, that was the 3rd time he had been there that day. So Joe Brinson said, "You've been here, this is the 3rd time you've been here. I'm not going to give you any more money." So he was shaking the place down for not having no license, bootleg,
Okay.
And so with him shaking the place down, and so Joe Brinson said, "I'm not going to give you any more money." So then Leonard Sizemore said, "Well, you under arrest." And he reached for his gun, and Joe Brinson beat him and shot him twice. So he fell dead there in the place. And then people got to scattering, and there was another little jig joint up closer towards closer to Washington Street. And I can't think of his name, but he came down, and he saw the white officer on the floor, and they finally called the police and all that,
Mm-hmm.
And then things went on to where the sheriff gets wise of it and runs on in. And there were 6 people that was there, and I think the last one just died here few years ago, you know, there was that knowledge. I mean, you know, right there.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul Eccles and I, we talk about that and so forth. And then like there was another shootout of the railroad people, and I don't know what complexion these people were,
Mm-hmm.
but that was a big deal at that time as well. And then here's a guy that retired from the police. His name is Lee English.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you got that?
It's a good look. It's a
Yeah.
good look. You got it.
Lee English, he, right there where the radio station is, used to be a big old tree, from
Mhm.
what I understand. And he had a shootout, and he killed the guy that he was shooting. But the reason this Lee English is so important, after the shootout with Joe Brinson and Leonard Sizemore,
Mm-hmm.
and you read the Carbondale Free Press, the mayor says, well, he'll never send another white officer over there by himself, you know. And so they got Lee English to be the Negro officer to do the Negro policing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, that wasn't a bad thing in a way, because Lee English knew the people,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. And that's what needs to be done now. I asked one of the Carbondale police right in today's time a few weeks ago, you know, well, if you have to move to Carbondale, you still gonna be a police? He said, oh no, he gonna move. He ain't gonna be a policeman if he had to move in Carbondale.
Yeah.
Well, I said, goodbye. You need to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's a problem that we've got right now, right? That, you know, I think it's like 4 out of every 5 police officers we got what, 65, 70 police officers, something like that, right? So 4 out of every 5 police officers we've got don't even live here.
Right.
And now the other side of it is, imagine even if all the cops did move into town, what are they going to do? They're going to go move into a little, you know, white cordoned off part of town away from as many people as they can possibly be, for the most part. I think you've got the gentleman, and this gentleman has, when I wrecked my car when I was a teenager, I remember him coming out. It was a snowy evening around Bosquedale, and he's a Jackson County sheriff. Lives over, I think, on Marion Street. I just know driving by his car.
Yeah.
I think he lives right next to the church or something there. Right, but other than that, I mean, there's no real connection between any sort of, you know, police that operate in this town and the actual town itself as a relationship.
I understand what you're saying, but see, there is something that can be done about that, and that's almost like that TIF district thing. And so years ago, I haven't followed up on it for a long time, but when I was doing that teaching problems that we had in the country and certain areas in the country, they had given stipends to teachers to move in certain areas. So that stipend could be applied toward police if they so wish to. It just takes a little bit of thought.
Yeah.
Not too much education, just some thought, you know.
Well, and the other side of it, right? If you have these people live here, right? There's property tax revenue that comes back to you. There's, you know, money from buying groceries and food and going out and whatever else. You know, we send millions of dollars out the door from our municipal body to other towns by way of simply employing a bunch of people that don't live in the town.
Yep.
I don't know where that would have come from, but I'm not going to worry about it.
They might know I'm in here.
Good thing the doors are locked.
But you can see that in the transition of how people are coming in and out of Carbondale, especially coming from the Heron area. You know, coming from the east into Carbondale. But it's bigger than that in a sense about just the dollars that go. It's the at the time of Lee English and the Leonard Sizemore and all that stuff, there was another degree of policing. It was called neighborhood policing. It was these neighborhood police or I got pictures of some of them right here too.
Yeah.
It's, yep, here they are. Let me see if I can figure this out. Well, I can't see it right
There
well
you
from
no,
here.
that looks good. I mean, you can tell. And is it on what would be your left? It looks like there are 2 black police officers in this
Was
picture.
that over here? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's Irma Hayes' husband, Bill Hayes,
Uh-huh.
and I can't think of the other person's name. And then down here, right
Yep.
there,
Yep.
is Fred Miller.
Okay.
And I owe Fred Miller honorary recognition as from an organization that I'm in, was in, here in Carbondale. I never got it done. I'm going to do something for Fred, though. So anyway, my point is, these were the auxiliary police. And these people here were then doing the things at the basketball, games,
Mm-hmm.
the dances, somebody acting silly down the street. You didn't call these other police and so forth, you know. You called the neighbor police, and they would come, and if you get out of hand for the neighborhood, then call these other police.
Yeah.
You know, so it's so many ways of going towards something, and then but here in the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's gone to military policing.
Yeah.
You know, so and in this military policing, if you got a stick, you subject to get shot.
Mm-hmm.
You subject to get shot if you just raise your hand. So, that's just a cop out a way of they figured out, well, they can't do nothing to me because I got the authority to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the people feel this policing with the attitude of the old slave catchers.
Mm-hmm.
And they are really doing it in a big way and have put millions of black people in jail and millions of other people in jail. But there's been more of the black people going into the jails than the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way the voting is controlled here, and those people even feel as if they can vote, so many people come out of the penitentiary or come out of the county jail, they don't even feel as if, I'm talking about being out, walking on the street, that they can even vote because it's not encouraged that they can vote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a few years ago, I went to the county and asked them for access to the jail to go in there to get people registered that had not been convicted, and with the accordance with the Illinois State Election Board, if you could be in jail and not convicted,
Yep.
that you could then still register and vote.
Mm-hmm.
And Sheriff Burns denied me access, So we're in Southern Illinois. And if you look on the plain, the whatever that line is, the Mason-Dixon line is, we still yet south. And we're not only south but on the line, we are real south in attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem if you don't ever get out of this mess. But if this community, to me, would step beyond this racist attitude, and this community would go ahead and look towards bringing revenue into the Southern Illinois area. I mean, think broader than Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
And it could grow to be something instead of declining to be what?
Nothing.
It really fell down from where it once was. So the powers that be have really blew it. And we haven't had that many people who were, like, I got a few names of some people a few that I knew, a few that others had told me were the kind of people we need in the community today.
Yeah.
Well, Hugh Muldoon.
Yep.
I know Hugh, and I've always respected Hugh. I really I regret so bad that no one came to help Hugh with the continuing the parties that he used to have.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever go to his parties?
I've been to one. It was only in the last handful of years.
Yeah.
It was a Christmas party, but a Hugh Muldoon get together was quite a special thing.
Yep. And so I don't know Ron Nelson, but a person that I was asking, who should I talk about? Who is Ron Nelson? I mean, they say he's just one of those progressive thinking people,
Mm-hmm.
And so Paul Denise and Burton Bond, I knew him very well.
Mm-hmm.
Burton Bond, he was really into the labor. Into getting people into the unions and so forth. And so now that's the big heavy subject there, talking about the unions. And then Willie Lawson from Centralia, he worked with the Urban League and the NAACP and contracts of the state with IDOT and all. And so he helped people get to work. I mean, he was a black man that was doing it. Then there was Reverend Lloyd Sumner. Reverend Lloyd Sumner was a minister from Olivet, who was also a city council person, who was there to be that advocate for the community, for the black community. And then his job was over there at the unemployment office. So he was privy to a lot of the core information about the work status and all. And, Ed and Lillian Adams, Jane Adams, Jane Adams.
Yep.
With Ed and Lillian's her parents. And so I told you the other day that Paul Simon and I'm living, what do you call it, posthumously?
Posthumously.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Paul Simon got the award for Carbondale, doing the Martin Luther King thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he and I had the first. And so Dr. Morris and Dr. John Renneman. And Dr. John Renneman took my cousin and her husband to Edwardsville,
Mm-hmm.
And built that, and look at Edwardsville. Edwardsville is the subject of past SIU Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a core of people around these people, and Robert Stalls, and Reverend Turley, David King was the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Even Fisher was pretty good. But we haven't had that. That mayor, those people, and everybody that's pretty much came here has come to have to look up to Dwight Morris.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? His legacy is so that, oh boy, I'm going to Carbondale, SIU, and Dwight Morris.
Yeah.
And so, it's so much that needs to be done. It could be done if these people would look towards ways to doing it. And this population of holding others back need to just go on down the road somewhere. And so that won't be until we get the power into the vote. And that's why this voting at large is so harmful to the overall community,
Mm-hmm.
to where you can't negotiate to where we can do with, things that are not beneficial for the community.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole lot of things on TV, YouTube, about Black history, but all of these things, all politics are local. What's our problem here in Southern Illinois? What's our problem here in Carbondale? Who is dealing with the problems of Southern Illinois and Carbondale for the benefit of the whole? Until we prioritize that list, establish that list and prioritize it, what are you doing? Spinning wheels, delaying progress? That's about all it is. And then purposely delaying the progress so they can advance their own agenda. Mm-hmm. And one of the key ways to see that is with this recent, under the cloak of the virus, using the virus to hide progress, information, participation, a democratic process in dealing with affirmative action. This city denied and the community to have that input, to show what the affirmative action plan is. How does it compare to Kansas City? How does it compare to Philadelphia? How does it compare with the National Labor Relations suggestions for affirmative action? Who has laid these things out? And when did the city say, people, if you need clergy, bring them. If you got lay, use them. But the city denied the population or the community to be included in the direction of how affirmative action is to be formed in Carbondale. So the first time I ran for city council, as I didn't make it then, probably won't make it now either, but someone said, well, he won't play ball. Well, I ain't in that game. I'm trying to do a better game, you know? And this, to go forth, do better, gonna have to change, gonna have to change. And I mean, you know, we've had a whole lot of hoping. I hope this, I hope that, but we ain't seen much of a change, and that's what we need. A change, as Sam Cooke said, has got to come someday.
And that is episode 41 with Melvin Pepper Holder, a candidate for City Council Carbondale 2021, but much more important than that, a torchbearer of history and knowledge in this town. And this is only one conversation. I imagine we could probably have a few more in the future. But for now, we'll just leave it at the usual end. Have a good one, folks. Whatever that one may be.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have had you, Pepper. Thank you.